So the first question is, can we believe in it? We don't need to believe or disbelieve anything, because the reality is as it is, and it's kind of neutral. But the reality which we are talking about is a cumulative collective human consciousness. So this type of reality is sort of man-made, because it's influenced by the collective thought process, by collective emotions and so on. So when we talk about black magic, what is the black magic? It is something related to the negative energy. And negative energy is what? Is first of all in the realm of emotions. It's negative emotions. Emotions which arise from comparison, jealousy, from feeling inferior. So, or willing or wishing to feel superior. So there is always this desire to be something that you're not. And this desire comes, and restlessness also from that, comes from deeply rooted victimization. Now, this victimization program is the root of any black magic. At some point, the corruption came through victimization. Someone felt inferior. Someone felt unjust, or felt that there is no justice. Someone felt hurt. So because they could not refine that feeling right away, or transcend and let go, they accumulated it. They sent it back in the form of negative thoughts, negative wishes. And so the circle started. Now, in ancient times, people had also formulas and knowledge about the constituents of this reality, so the elemental forces. And they understood that there's no there are no elemental forces and nothing separate from consciousness. So they understood that it's not that the elemental forces are building this all, it's because they are aware of self, of themselves. So they are aware of self being consciousness, being that space on which everything arises. They see how the physical or gross and emotional realities are formed through that process. And it was like a natural process of seeing how the creation and decreation happened. So the knowledge existed, but the knowledge is neutral in its form. Now, if you use the knowledge through the feeling of being victimized, feeling injustice, feeling jealous, comparison, you might start misusing this knowledge. So it means that we have to start with ourselves. At the moment, most of the world is tangled with the occult, with the phenomena of black magic, ancestral curses, and so on. This exists more than we are aware of. It actually exists almost everywhere. There is not a single family tree, clan that would be spared. Then we have colonial past, when we decided to oppress one nation and establish superiority over the other. So we created a certain karmic response. Now, let's say we went to indigenous people. Indigenous people knew the science of consciousness, the science of being, the science of elemental forces and how creation happens. So we force them, abuse them, they become victims. They create feeling within themselves of resistance. So they start, they can curse, they can send this wave. Now this wave manifests in the form of what? The next generations coming to be addicts, drug addicts, and we see it all over Europe and Americas, epidemics of heavy drugs, alcoholism, uncontrollable sexual urges and perverted sexuality. And again, the circle completes with desire to go again into the occult, because one feels so disempowered inside, so discontent, that one needs to establish superiority by gaining access to the knowledge. But true occult knowledge is not of a harmful nature. The problem that the occult has been misunderstood. The occult means something sacred and hidden. And that sacred and hidden means that this is our essence that is not openly revealed through the manifestation, through all this what we see as and perceive as if the ultimate reality. So the ultimate reality is actually the occult, the hidden. But the majority of the people who originally were propagating the truth about the ultimate self, about consciousness and the being, eventually corrupted somewhere on the way. And so only the physical, the gross aspect of that science, the science of the creative part of that, remained known to people. And so the word occult kind of automatically started to refer to these kind of sciences, the science about creation and manipulation of the matter, of the gross emotional matter. But gross emotional reality is only one tiny aspect of the existence. So it's not the entire understanding of what there is. So, but for our human perception, that is what we are currently understanding. So when there are these entanglements, most of the people and the coming generation will face it more and more. They will face issues within themselves. So many times when people call the process of awakening, Kundalini awakening, as something which is emotional and stressful, where they have to face some strange phenomena, it's not because it's true awakening, but it's awakening to the fact that they are impacted by something negative, that negativity does exist in their life. They start awakening to the other dimensional reality of themselves, which is affected, afflicted. But the true conscious awakening does not need to be painful, does not need to have all this craziness and madness that people talk about on the internet. It's a very different process. But for most of the people right now, because negativity reached the point, the highest point, the pinnacle, and it's to the brim. So through that negative force, which is to the brim, they awake to see it because it flashes in their face. Yet they are not able to, because there is no knowledge about it, there is no awareness, they're not able to realize that this is not about further evolution. It's about what you are to clean first, what you are to realize first. And now black magic and all these afflictions as a part of, let's say, rituals, they are done through a certain mechanism which is as precise as mathematics. And that's what I'm saying, that what became an occult is only that ritualistic part, only certain particular formulas that were preserved. And many times these formulas are in the hands of people who are consciously not evolved. That's why there is no connection, there is no yoga, there is no equilibrium and balance. Only the use of earthly energies without higher consciousness, which is dangerous. That's why our world is getting more and more into perversion and other things, where you need to replenish energies by taking similar energies. Let's say you take one type of energy, you cannot replace it unless you have access to higher consciousness, because consciousness replaces, it is the eternal source of energy. Now most of these occult sciences known to now are not connected with the higher paths, higher spiritual paths, where one first masters self on the conscious level, and from that awaken, aware of self, one starts to refine self and see all the darkness, all the negativity, all the afflictions of the past through the point of view of a higher awareness. So one cannot misuse anything, because one realizes, first of all, the wholesomeness of self and the world. So one is established in natural morale. Now, if you don't have that, and one also has the access to the eternal source of energy, which is through self, through the higher self. Now, if you don't have that, you always have to look for something to replenish it. So that's where most of these rituals are based on use and misuse of sexual energy from someone else. And all the perversion, all the other things come from it. And it works probably on the level of this reality, or gross emotional reality. But it is not the path for higher spiritual evolution. And now, whenever people have this entanglement, it's always, there is a reason for it. There is some kind of a past, but it remains obscure. They don't know where it comes from. Yet we don't need to go in the past and necessarily dig into your ancestry and try to figure out which grandpa did what wrong. But you are to see again. First, you're to awake. Awakening means, first of all, expanded awareness and connection with the ultimate self. Through this way, or in this way, you are connected with the higher source. In this case, you are able to look at whatever happens within you from a neutral point of view, equanimous point of view. If you're not able to generate equanimity and look at any phenomena through stillness, you can get tangled and misled by any phenomena which arises within you, through you, around you, as if, because no matter what arises around you, it is always about your inner response. So what you're to work here with is with your inner reactions, responses. So nowadays people talk about emotional intelligence, but there is no such a thing as emotional intelligence, because emotions are connected. Of course, they are having some connection with our consciousness, but usually emotions are just waves. So if one cannot be established on the level of awareness and watch these waves arise, one is not able to control these waves. So these waves become a part of one's being and start misleading that being, or pushing them into joy or happiness or unhappiness, depression, sadness, anger, and so on. So the emotional aspect has to be refined after the awakening in order to understand the roots which could connect the person to the past karmic occult points or black magic, let's say. But if someone is severely afflicted by black magic, let's say something was ritualistically done where someone's biomaterial was used, or picture, anything like that, then in this case, just working on self for most of the people is not enough, because the same thing, you have to come to the situation at some point where you get help on your path, or you get guided, because there's no way to remove such things, such afflictions, just by trying to change your beliefs or do affirmations or charge crystals. Nothing will work, because it's like a cloud, like a veil on your path. Even if you're supposed to be successful on your destiny, you won't be, because there is this veil. No matter what you do, there will be like a continuous set of negative events where your own personal limited emotional self will be involved, and you will always go down the spiral, because this is how this works, because the current downwards is very strong. and something is related to it. Most of the people are not aware of it, so they start blaming destiny, horoscopes, they start going into astrological predictions, and they're continuously in this mode of hope, hope, hope. And they're trying to go into religion and do anything for looking for solution, yet solution never comes. That is black magic. And it can be related to emotional field, like personal emotions, like related to your relationships. It can be related to your work and career and success. So when we talk about success, success is possible when you're deeply content. And you are able to be deeply content only when you are aware and are able to manage the waves that arise within you. If you're not able to manage the waves that arise within your field, you're not able to succeed, because these emotional waves will distract you, will take you out of the state of equanimity and contentment, and your thoughts will go all over the place, will be dragged or connected with the emotions. So in a way, black magic works in such a way, in simple way. It's like a perpetuum mobile, the eternal engine, which works through the negative thoughts. When certain negative thoughts are around you, either enforced by someone, imposed by someone, or on purpose induced by some black magic. So you are able to stop them at that point. But most of the people, having no awareness of such a phenomenon or themselves or who they are, tend to entertain thoughts which start gradually kind of penetrating the auric field of the person or the mind, and gradually pull out the emotional responses. So people connect emotions with thoughts, and it becomes an eternal engine which speeds up and like a snowball, and attracts more and more negativity, because the thought entertains emotion, emotion entertains the thought, and the person cannot come out of this vicious circle. So whoever has done bad or committed bad things against you, it's one realm. The other realm is to understand it, to admit that if the person recognizes that they cannot sleep well, they have strange pains, they have strange cyclical pains, like certain headaches, certain back pains, or certain feeling of energy piercing somewhere, it's not necessarily that you're going through Kundalini awakening. You're simply under some occult influence which you're not aware of, or you have something that you have to resolve in this matter. If you can't sleep, if you are tormented with anxiety, you cannot find the point of contentment. So these all are just little descriptions of the affliction of that nature. So in this case, no matter what you do, you see that it's kind of hopeless. The only way is to recognize through the awareness, through becoming aware about it, to recognize that how, first of all, this mechanism works. Because first, there is something that is affecting your auric field, that is affecting you, and it's first from the thoughts. So that's why in many religions who acknowledge this phenomenon, like for example, in Hinduism or Muslim religion, they are aware of that phenomenon. So they say never act upon the thoughts which you have first. So if you start acting upon the thoughts, it means that you connect the thoughts into a storyline. Now this storyline arises emotions. Now these emotions disempower you because they are of a depressive, negative nature. Yet what comes to spirituality, when people want to evolve spiritually, they think, okay, if I evolve completely out of this, if I remove all my negative energy and I'm not angry anymore, I'm not jealous and so on, I'm only joyful and exciting and excited and compassionate, it doesn't mean that you're refined fully, because it's not that difficult to spot negative energies and negative vibrations in our life, but it's very difficult to refine on the positive side. Because the point is not to go into the extremes, because equanimity is not about positive or negative. Equanimity is about transcendence. Equanimous point is a foundation. Stillness is a foundation. Peace is a foundation. It's not the goal, which allows you to transcend further, evolve further, and realize something beyond this material, emotional, mental reality. So when you, let's say, somewhere on the path, you got help, you got refined, you got free from these afflictions, and it doesn't mean that you have to start believing in that existence. You have to just acknowledge and admit what is happening to you and start working from your point of view. And many people who say that they are able to remove these things, they are magicians and they have a lot of power. Most of the people have no such abilities because they are spiritually not much evolved. They only know some formulas. Formulas means that you are getting more and more tangled with the occult or with these people who offer you this support, because neither they are evolving or developing spiritually, no, you are developing or evolving spiritually. So your entanglement with them is again on the level of gross emotional reality. So it means that even if they offered you some solution, you're completely ignorant about yourself and what was happening. You just allowed them to be in charge of your life. You just handed in the key to these people. Many times these people portray themselves as very positive and helpful, yet they are able equally to do something not very morally good most of the time. So, but even if all that is not there and you are evolving and you are super positive, you have to realize that spirituality is not about super positivity. Because when you become super positive at some point, the energy will be to the brim and you will start going into negativity. So that's why the point of true spiritual path, whichever name this path has, should be always about transcending and going beyond the duality. Duality includes positivity and negativity. It means you develop completely very aware, wise, but non-judgmental, neutral, very much understanding what's happening point of view, but not getting involved with anything that you're perceiving. So there are no reactions. When there are no reactions, you are able to cultivate what's called your light essence or your true conscious light essence. Some people call it light body and so on. But this science is only theoretical at this point for most of the people, because most of the people are deeply engrossed in the occult, in all these occult manipulations, and that's where many people are afflicted by ancestry or by black magic and are not aware. Most of our diseases are of the occult nature or energetic nature, yet we're not aware of it. They start slowly, they creep in slowly, and then they result in the physical affliction as well with time, when such things are not treated on the energetic level. So on the true spiritual path, whichever name that would mean or would carry, it is always about consciousness first. So everything starts with consciousness and awareness. You become aware of self. You become aware, and then you deal with other things. And the other point is important, that you have guidance and understanding of what you are actually doing, what you are actually involving in. At the moment, there are so many new age movements where crystals, herbs, rituals become very popular, diagrams. You are living imagination. You are hallucinating about spirituality, because to be still, to cultivate stillness, potency of mind, is so difficult, because it's so easy actually. For the action-driven mind that is restless, that looks for solutions in the divided reality, it is easier to grasp the division in the reality. Because rituals, 5 elements are more fascinating. 7 chakras, 12 chakras are more fascinating. Rainbow colors, unicorns, entities, ghosts, spirits, predictions through spirits, channeling is so much more understandable for the action-driven mind than absolute equanimous stillness of mind, which is already content in itself. This contentment is the sign of a firm spiritual foundation on which you are able to build really your true essence and realize who you are with time. The other point is, since the body is so important for the spiritual evolution, most of the afflictions of the occult nature, the black magic, are all on the level of body and emotions only. And thoughts, of course, are the most important kind of way to transfer this. Let's say if somebody wishes you bad, is jealous, on which level it comes first? It comes on the level of thoughts. They feel the emotion, but how do they translate it? They translate into negative thoughts, which they send towards your auric field. Now you receive their negative emotions translated into thoughts in your field, again in the form of thoughts. You start having negative thoughts. Then somehow you try to explain, oh, it's because of this, it's because of that. And you connect it into a story. And the story starts generating as an engine, an emotional response. Then it translates into a feeling. If you continuously experience this feeling for a very long time, this feeling becomes a disease because it is somewhere. It is either in your lower abdominal area, solar plexus, heart. It cannot target usually other areas. Even if you have headaches and pressures and pains, it all comes from a stagnant digestive system, because major spiritual organs are around the solar plexus: liver, pancreas, or kidneys. Now look at and of course lower abdominal with the sexual organs and gynecological system, or the reproductive system. So if you look at people, most of the people suffer diseases related to these: diabetes, indigestion, irritable bowel syndrome, kidney stones, all kinds of stones, liver toxicity, and so on. Because black magic, targeting gross emotional reality, it will always target your pranic field, or the subtle body, which goes after the physical body. An emotional reality, your emotional thoughts and physical reality. It cannot target your spiritual, because it is not the realm of that. But because of blocking you on the way, blocking your health, or blocking your mental, emotional capabilities, you are not able to evolve because you are tormented. Now you can say these are negative waves that torment, or they are in the form of entities. Whatever that is, whatever you want to believe or disbelieve, or you know or you don't know, whatever that form of negative energy, doesn't matter. It will always try to lower your vibration by giving negative thoughts. If you give in to this lowering of the vibration, it will go deeper into the level of emotions, and then it will gradually affect your body. Your body will be irritated, very anxious, full of anger, or some kind of depressive feelings, depending on what the person, your negative wisher or your attacker, is trying to achieve. So nowadays, even though you said that people don't believe in these things, but people in business, people in all the fields compete with each other, especially the higher you go, the more people use this knowledge, or misuse this knowledge, better to say. Also, what comes to spirituality, most of our pseudo gurus and teachers are using these means to attract more followers, to have more money, and so on. Because if you want to transcend and go beyond this gross emotional reality, you have to understand that it's transient. If you are engrossed in this transitory being, and even though you got some awakening or a little bit of expansion of awareness and some spiritual experience, if you're not going to or not able to integrate it within your being, and this integration would result in selflessness, simplicity, equanimity, and stillness, then you are prone to go to all kind of misleading paths by being a little bit empowered by this expansion of awareness. So the expansion of awareness, even the point of awakening, does not mean that you have spiritually achieved anything. It's only the beginning. And it depends on your selflessness, on your humility, on your readiness to work on yourself and to face what comes your way in such a way that you would refine yourself and remain pure on this path without being tangled with all these released also positive energy, because you will need to first refine the negative, and then, which is the hardest, to face all the excitement, all the overexcitement, all the overflowing creativity, in order to transcend it and see the transitory nature of it as well. Because many people get trapped precisely by this overpositivity and this overly stimulated creative energy. And that's why the levels of transcendence are pretty much unknown to the date. Not so many people were able to transcend and to build their light essence, to mature their light essence, and to completely transcend. So they think that they achieved something because they a little bit broken through this emotional dimension or physical dimension and took a glimpse into something and a little bit experienced samadhi and think that samadhi is the pinnacle. Samadhi is just the beginning. You have to experience it at the beginning, this blissful equanimity on which you build your foundation, which this foundation would pull you through all the process of refinement of the negative and so on. But it doesn't mean that this is the attainment. The attainment is immortality, a complete transformation of all the negative and positive, and transcendence into the light essence of self, of conscious self. And then continue this evolution in the other subtler realm. That's, to my understanding, is the path. Yet the other points which I mentioned are not available simply spiritually, or hardly mentioned, because no one is able to go over the positive current, because positive current sucks in. It's too pleasant. Pleasure sucks in. It's too pleasant. People are eagerly ready to lose their awareness through being overly excited. And they call it bhakti, they call it devotion. Devotion, compassion are distortions of a positive nature. Joy, true master, does not react neither to good nor bad. They always remain equanimous and aware of the self. And through that, they cultivate themselves as they are in their light being. So if people get tangled in this, they create huge movements, they mesmerize, they try to do some rituals to increase this positive energy, prosperity, joy, and so on, and get tangled in it without being aware. Because there was no one there to tell them, to turn their awareness into that point where they would realize that. That's why it's such a trap. The trap that hardly anyone can realize. So the question here, that the black magic is only one problem. It is a severe problem for the humanity at this point of time. But the next step would be the recognition of other distortions which are of a subtler and more positive nature. It doesn't mean then you would say, but how is it to live then in such a, is it boring? No, because when you're content, there's no thought of being bored. There's no feeling of being bored. You can do every day just the same thing, and you will be absolutely content. You may do nothing at all. And again, the point what I'm saying is not about separation, the being and the action. First, your foundation is the being, which has to be a part of your action. If you're acting through that being, you will never misuse your power, never will try to establish superiority, inferiority, never will try to compare yourself with others. You will just be. You will share your knowledge, you will share your expertise, you will contribute to something, and then we'll go back into your peaceful being. That's the ultimate point. But the peaceful being, again, is a foundation. Through that peaceful being, you are transcending gradually and also growing in the level of intelligence, where the intelligence goes beyond superiority, inferiority. It doesn't want to be superior or inferior. It just knows. That's where there is a big difference between the predigested knowledge, someone else's knowledge, and self-born knowledge. Because when someone's awareness is trying to bring the afflicted awareness to the awareness of this fact that they afflicted, there is a resistance. Now many people have to understand that when we talk about entities, let's say someone is afflicted and they have certain entities and all, they're all air and fireborn. That's where the knowledge of elements comes. So they're air and fireborn. They will create anger, they will create tension, pressures. And in yogic terms, you are to be able to manage your winds, or in Taoist probably as well terms. Winds means that you are able to maintain the absorbed state, you are able to maintain the equanimous being. But again, even if you're trying and you're afflicted, black magic becomes the biggest obstacle on our spiritual path. We can learn the mechanism, how it works within ourselves. We can accept it and understand that this is a part of our journey. Yet at some point there is a need for a solution. And this solution has to be obtained from someone who knows these sciences. Because if someone has afflicted you in a certain precise mathematical way, you have to remove it in the same way. But removal does not guarantee that you will be free. Because if it has stayed there for many years, it has affected your mind in a certain way. So you would need to follow and understand that certain traces and features will still remain for a while, and you would need to refine them. But it's easier when it's removed. Now, the second point is protection. So that's why all the spiritual lineages, all the spiritual masters talked about param-para. Whether they called it that way or not, but they called it a lineage because it meant that there were enlightened beings who have achieved the state of the mature light body or essence within themselves, conscious light essence, through which they transcended further, and they have offered the protection of that. Because if one has mature light essence, these things cannot afflict them, cannot disturb them. And that's why they also gain naturally the exercising power. Now, if we look into religion, many people say they know how to exercise. Maybe because of their strong, let's say they have done something spiritually, some practices. Maybe they've got some strong solar plexus and energy generating through it, but they have not reached a high spiritual level, only through self-confidence and prayer. So maybe they can exercise by reciting some prayers or mantras, some entities. But if the link is not cut, if the root has not been removed in a specific way, during that session you're with them, you will feel relief, you will feel fine, it will go away. Now, after some time, it will follow them because their biomaterial or their ancestry is involved. So they can be recognized through their genetic, auric field, energetic field anywhere. So they can't run and hide from that, at least. And so this will come again. So many times people try to exercise, but it comes back again because they haven't established the link with the param-para, or they haven't gotten that protection. So on the spiritual path, two things are important. One is refinement, and when I mean refinement, it's like every kind of refinement, from your ancestry, your family tree, your genetic self, through this awareness and consciousness and awakening process. But the second is param-para, which is the protection. Without these two, there is no further progress. And there will be always forces of one kind or the other that will try to impede the normal being of the person. And this impediment is only, it does concern only the physical and the emotional. The thoughts and emotions are kind of the same. So thoughts, emotions, and the physical. And emotions translate into the physical in the form of feeling. So it becomes like a feeling of pain, a feeling of pressure, and so on. And you know, those people, which is the majority of people, know how the feeling of fear is experienced and so on. That's why if you want to detangle it also yourself, if you are sure that it's not any kind of occult influence, if it's, let's say, some traumatic experience from your childhood or something like that, then you have to concentrate first on the feeling through that stillness and equanimity and awareness. Then you have to see, what does this feeling trigger in you? Does it trigger this engine spin of thoughts and emotions creating a story? And so you have to kind of go back through this process. You have to detangle it by first accepting the feeling, observing the feeling, not connecting the feeling to the emotion, not connecting emotion to the thought and the story, so that the feeling gets exhausted. And if you work on and on like this, you will realize something with time or instantly. You might have an emotional release in the form of cries and so on, or even laughter sometimes. But so, I mean, in one video, it's impossible to talk about such a vast topic by trying to give some kind of just basic information. How this mechanism happens, I described kind of, but the point is why this negative wave finds the hook is because there is something within the person. There's some kind of a response within the person. Let's say if there is no hook within, there will be nothing to hook onto. So when the wave arises, it tries to bombard the field of the person. So the first negative thought lowers the vibration, the conscious vibration in the body. So it gives the access to the negative, whatever that is. So, and then it stirs it with raising the emotions and the story within the field or the head of the person, within their conscious field. And they are not conscious anymore. They lose into that because it's so easy to start like going on and on with the development of the story upon these negative thoughts and connecting it. Oh, it's because she left me. It's because they betrayed me. It's because nobody wants me. So it's always some kind of a victimization within that gives an opening. Because you see, no one can violate our field. We are free will beings. No entity can just enter our field. No negative anything can enter because we are protected by our free will. But we submit this free will by opening our field to the negative, by allowing to entertain the thoughts of a same resonance. So the wave comes with a certain frequency. Your mind maybe is here right now, you're thinking of some higher matters. Now it slowly goes down to the same frequency. When the frequency meets, it's an opening. So if you are able to maintain your vibrational level higher, and you are continuously on that higher level, it will be more difficult for that energy to enter. Let's say if that energy is only trying to sabotage your success, so your thoughts and emotions become like the primary source of your disturbance. Because whoever does, you are not supposed to be a victim, because if you continue feeling as a victim and you are not going to take responsibility for the thoughts and emotions that you allow yourself to entertain within your own space, you will continue being more and more attacked, and you will go down. Because the magic makes you go down, but it happens with your own hands, through your own very mechanism, which goes down with the frequency. It means that the jealous thoughts, or you see someone and you immediately think bad of them. So it means that which is sent to you from the outside finds the connection from within. It means you are jealous as well. It means you are negative, you are angry, and so on. If there is some entity in your field that is giving you irritative thoughts and negative, you may allow this to happen. You may choose to act as an irritating or irritative, angry person. You may take something and hit or throw, or you may inhale, exhale, and say, no, I'm not going to act upon this. Even though I feel like this, I'm not going to act. So after all, it is your choice. But many people are weakened through the victimization and the program of victimization and the continuous bombardation of this negative energy into submissive mode, where any suggested negative thought meets easily, gets response easily from within. And then you find thousands of reasons and stories within to find excuses. It's because of my son-in-law, it's because of my daughter-in-law, it's because of my parents, it's because of whoever. Whoever is that triggers, the negative energy finds something within your consciousness. And all the highest masters, the most evolved masters, they realize that there is no death outside of them. There is no negative energy outside of them. But most of people who try to grasp this highest level are fools, because you have to understand, first of all, the mechanism. If you just persuade yourself, I'm consciousness, nothing can affect me, you are just a fool. And you will be affected more and go down the drain with your evolution of spirituality, because you don't see the mechanism. Before you grasp the stars, make sure you don't stumble at every step. So black magic makes people also very arrogant. It fools people. It's the waves of arrogance, the waves of superiority. At the same time, the person feels not enough, very victimized, very emotional. So if the person is very emotional and is not able to maintain the stillness of mind, they will be always a prey to negative energies. Maybe they're not affected by black magic, but let's say they interact with people who are affected, or they go to some pub where negative energy is more concentrated. Or maybe there are deceased souls which are roaming around, a lot of suicidals also. Such souls can easily get attached to such victims who feel victimized within themselves, who are extremely emotional, extremely mentally and emotionally imbalanced. And so the peak of energy, which demonstrates that someone is affected, happens during the full moon. And the fact that people get more mental during the full moon or whatever is not because of the full moon, but because there is a certain cycle of rise and decline of energy within our conscious field, which is related to emotions. And so if there are unrefined emotions, these attacks or these entanglements will be felt extremely powerful during the full moons, or sometimes also new moon, depending on what happens. And then the more you feel negative emotions, the more you feel victimized, the more you will accumulate this energy in the organs, vital organs. So with time, vital organs will result in failure or pains or something like that, or they won't work well. So the toxicity will accumulate in the body. The liver will stagnate, not filter enough So the body will start stagnating, accumulating weight. Or there is another thing, that sometimes there are suggestive thoughts. Like sometimes the person, just somebody is jealous, and this jealousy comes in the form of thoughts where the person just starts feeling depressed, and then through this depression excuses, let's say, taking bad foods or starts drinking. To my mind and to my experience, and it's my own observation, that most of the addictions are of that nature. I don't think there is one addiction that is not related to the occult. All the addictions, all the cravings, instability of the mind related to the occult reasons, which our current science, psychology, psychiatry, and other related sciences are refusing to take an account on the official level. So there is no such a thing as like, of course, the ultimate solution is to awake to it, to find some way to resolve it, to be free from this affliction. But there aren't so many masters who are able to do it. And even if someone removes it, if they don't offer the protection, or if they are not strong enough to offer the protection so that this will not be reinforced by someone again, because you never know, in every individual scenario there are different reasons. Let's say if someone is, because of ancestry, because of something that has been done in their family, let's say is a drug addict or an alcoholic, and then you help them and remove this affliction, perhaps they will steer clear from that and they will change their lives. But or maybe through their own effort. But if there is black magic affliction, it's not enough. So in this case, we are talking about possession, because in many cases black magic is a link between certain energy fields or entities which are, or some souls that are summoned by a magician or someone who does that, an occultist, to interfere with someone's life. And because they are of a subtle nature, you can't see them, but you can feel the presence. When they get into your auric field, you will become irritated, or you will have negative dreams, or you will be tormented or sexually assaulted in dreams, or you will have some paranoid fear-like feelings, or you might have some pains which doctors cannot understand. The reasons for these pains will be unknown to the science. So, or you have some strange headaches, or you have some strange bleedings, or piercings, or some kind of stuff like that. You will have depressive modes, negative, fearful, paranoid, almost mentally imbalanced, obsessive cravings, different kind of perhaps addictive or some kind of obsessions will be there. So these obsessions work through possession. So the person can be also possessed, either possessed by chance or deliberately through the black magic ritual. So there can be some entity possessing them and influencing on their interests. So it is the entity that pushes them to crave for alcohol and drug, because the entity wants to experience it too. Some deceased soul, it can be a deceased soul of an addict, of an alcoholic. So if that soul is attached to that being and is able to kind of possess half of their feelings, and so that soul will be enjoying through their body. So this is a science. And I think that people should start really publicly learning about these sciences, because so many people, actually, the whole planet is affected. Because there were, in ancient times, there were different realms who were practicing this actively, kingdoms, and they were fighting against each other through use of the occult powers and so on. So all the empires the strong empires were established through the magic as well. But this is a different topic. Now, the phenomena of possession means that the person in a normal state does not crave for this, does not want this sexual perversion, does not want to do this, does not want to be angry. But there is a moment that something triggers, lowers their field. The entity enters for a very short time. In that short time, less than 2 minutes sometimes, people can kill others. And then they moan and remorse for the rest of their life. They don't know how they did it, how it happened. So this instability can last for 30 seconds only, yet through this 30 seconds, they can ruin their entire life. So these are also things that are used to sabotage the person, to help them sabotage their lives, to destroy their lives with their own hands. But if, let's say, they were aware of this phenomenon in their life, with time, with some spiritual practice, some guidance, they could probably withstand this kind of pressure and not act upon it. Yet most of the people are ignorant, and they think that whatever arises in the field of their mind, the thoughts, the emotions, is them. But the truth is that no thought and emotion is ours, because human being, as a higher ultimate being, is beyond thoughts and emotions. Thoughts and emotion is just a faculty which helps you to a little bit realize or communicate how to do things for the survival, for the establishing of the infrastructure, and that's it. But because with time we got so corrupt and tangled, so we no longer could perceive our true essence, the ultimate being, which is always there, but which is beyond thoughts and emotions and feelings. And so we assume that the human being is the collage of bones and skin plus thoughts, emotions, and feelings. Yet the actual human being is beyond that. These are the faculties that overwhelmed us, that took control over us, yet they are not us. So this is what we have to realize, and everything comes through awareness. If we are aware, it means our free will becomes stronger, at least to some degree. We become aware whenever the next time you feel angry, whenever the next time you feel jealous, all of a sudden you start craving for sugar, you start craving for meat, you start craving for some negative action, or you feel the sexual perversion arising. Remember, you become aware, oh, maybe it's not me. You start questioning, maybe it's not me. Maybe it's something else. So maybe you are affected still on a mental and emotional level, yet you choose not to act upon it. That's the way how you start kind of transcending from it slowly. Yet at some point you will need some help, and this help will naturally be materialized by your own consciousness when it's ready to completely part through. On the other hand, I want to give another dimension and perspective. Yes, on one hand, the entire world population, pretty much the entire, there are some exceptions, are affected by whatever curses, occult, jealousy, because everybody got entangled. Yet it is all right. Everything is correct. There is nothing wrong with this. There's nothing to change from the active point of view. You see, the wisdom is that change comes gradually from within. That's the wisdom of non-interference. Because each and every player will need time to realize. You cannot impose this science or this understanding. You can create a public awareness, but it doesn't mean you have to change everybody's life or everybody needs to rush, because for some it will be right, for some it will be wrong, for some it will be bullshit, some people will change through it. It doesn't matter. We are the collective consciousness. So gradually we will come to the awareness of this, and we will try to realize it, but it will be as the result of the karmic payback. These generations for 3-4 past 1,000 years needed to pay for it. People are looking for a judgment day. Hello. The judgment day has arrived over 5,000 years back. That was the time when the judgment day, and we are living through it, because all these afflictions are our judgment day. We are paying back for whatever actions our ancestors have done, whatever misuse of power we have applied, whatever occult knowledge we have misused. We are paying for all of these. And we are here to choose whether we continue with that and we tangle more and we hurt more and we keep on spreading jealousy and comparison and this and that, or we just mind our own business, withdraw into ourselves and cultivate our inner self, which is less exciting for the action-driven afflicted mind, which is maybe boring for some, but which is the path that one is to awake to and recognize, but only through the maturity of consciousness. If your consciousness is not mature enough, it will not come to this realization. So everything is right. Everything comes in the right time, because those who are mature will come to this realization this time. Those who are less mature will come later. And this is all just fine.